Mental toughness is knowing that anything outside you cannot impact how you feel. Being able to give your best when your best is required is the ability to rise above your circumstances and thrive no matter what you're facing. When you're in a high state of mind, you know the truth. You have power over your circumstance. The ultimate teaching is knowing that you have the power inside of you to transform your circumstance.
Leadership looks different for everyone, and today you're going to meet someone who is at the pinnacle of teaching organizations, teams, humans how to operate at their highest level. And I'm very grateful for his time today. Please welcome the multiple-time best-selling author, expert, father, athlete, and so much more, Mr. Jon Gordon. How are you today, sir?
Doing great, Jonathan. Great to be with you. You know, my name is actually Jonathan as well. I am a Jonathan. You know what Jonathan means, by the way?
I don't. It sounds like I should, though.
It means God's gift.
Oh, I thought you said, do I know what Jonathan mean? Like his last name
No,
means?
Jonathan means God's gift. And I
yes.
tell my wife that all the time. She doesn't always believe it, but that's what it means. But yeah, I go by John.
It's funny because in Hebrew, it's Yonatan, God gave. So I knew that it's God's gift. And I do the same thing with my wife, actually, just in case she's ever taken me for granted. She remembers that I'm actually a gift from God. So we're aligned over there. I think an optimal place that I'd like to start while we have the precious moments that we do is talking about mental toughness, what it is, why you need it, how to build it, and maybe you could share with us your definition of mental toughness.
Mental toughness is knowing that anything outside you cannot impact how you feel. Mental toughness is knowing that your identity is not tied to your performance or some kind of external reward or success or expectation. Mental toughness is being able to give your best when your best is required. Mental toughness is when you have a high state of mind in a circumstance. And because you have a high state of mind, it allows you to rise above your circumstance. And so it really ultimately comes down to our state of mind, because you could have a low state of mind and the circumstance happens and it bothers you, it affects you. That same circumstance can happen another day when you have a high state of mind and it doesn't. And so it's your state of mind that determines ultimately how you handle the situation, how you respond to the situation, and how you overcome the situation, or how that situation causes you to feel powerless and causes you to be affected by the situation. And so your mental toughness is the ability to rise above your circumstances and thrive no matter what you're facing.
Now, this is an important concept that I talk quite a lot about with different experts on this podcast like yourself. I think there's a massive misconception around what mental toughness is, and I'm glad that we started by defining it, because even today I was reading an article in Sports Illustrated about how, in light of the election, we'll talk about just because it just happened, excused absences. Students, kids may be emotionally charged and not able to show up because of the outcome, whatever side they fall on. Compassion gets confused with weakness, which may require resilience. I'd love your take on what people get wrong about mental toughness.
When you look at the situation that people are dealing with, even right now after the election, or even before the election, people were allowing this election to affect their happiness, their joy, their ultimate actions they were taking in their life. Everything comes down to, as I said earlier, our state of mind. And when you understand that there's high state of mind and a low state of mind, and a high state of mind means you have a lot of clarity, a lot of focus, a lot of positivity, confidence, and courage. When you have a low state of mind, there's a lot of clutter, thought, worry, fear, anxiety, and doubt. And when you're in a low state of mind, you feel like your circumstance has power over you. When you're in a high state of mind, you know the truth. You have power over your circumstance. People often say social media is the cause of our mental health crisis. But when you really look at the situation, it's not social media, because there are days that you're on social media and it doesn't affect you, and other days it does. There are days someone says something negative about you, low state of mind, it really bothers you and affects you. High state of mind, you're like, they don't know what they're talking about. Let's move on. The power is knowing that you are greater than your circumstance. You are more powerful than your circumstance. So we are a country right now. We are a world that is teaching people and teaching kids that you're a victim of your circumstance, that who is in office determines your happiness, that Donald Trump can actually affect your mental health and cause you to feel deranged. They call it Trump derangement syndrome. It's real. People really are so affected by him and what he says that it truly affects their state of being. There are people right now that are literally going crazy, yelling and screaming. And if it was Kamala who'd won, there'd be people who would be doing the same and allowing that result to affect what they do and how they show up to work and how they treat their kids and how they hang out with their friends. The ultimate teaching is knowing that you have the power inside of you to transform your circumstance. It's the whole carrot, egg, and coffee bean analogy that I wrote in The Coffee Bean. You put that carrot into boiling hot water, what happens? It gets softened, it gets weakened by the environment. You put that egg into boiling hot water, what happens to the egg? It gets hardened by the environment. Well, life is like a big pot of boiling hot water right now, and it has been for a long time, more than ever. And that big pot of boiling hot water with pressure and expectation, negativity, a lot of fear, anxiety, worry, doubt. If you are that egg, you are hardened. You have a hardened heart. You're bitter, you're angry, you're frustrated. If you're that carrot, you're fearful, anxious, worried, and stressed. You don't want to be either the carrot or the egg. You want to be the coffee bean. You put that coffee bean into boiling hot water, what happens? It transforms the water into coffee. Think about it. It transforms the environment. It's not defined by its circumstance. Instead, it overcomes and thrives in the face of its circumstance. And that's what we have to teach kids. And that is what everyone is getting wrong. I've never put my trust in a political official or a government leader. My trust honestly comes from God. My trust comes from my own God-given ability and power that is placed within me to overcome this world and thrive in the face of what's happening in this world. Because there's a battle of positive versus negative, and there's always going to be negative, and you have to overcome the negative with positive. That's why positive actually so important, because if you allow the negative to take hold, it will bring you down. It will cause your demise and your destruction. And the negativity is the result of being in a low state of mind. Have you noticed that overthinking is always associated with negative thoughts? Like, we never say I have too many positive thoughts, Jonathan. We never say, man, I'm just too happy today. Man, I have just too much gratitude. It's always too much negative thoughts. And why is that? Because it's the negative thoughts and the clutter and the fear that separates and divides. The root for the Greek word of anxious means to separate and divide. So when you feel anxious, you actually feel separate and divided. People right now feel disconnected, separate, and divided. The more connected we feel whole. We feel more confident. We feel more courage and power and peace. So the key is to move towards connection instead of separation. You mentioned the Jewish, a word earlier. Well, guess what? Adam and Eve is a Jewish story. It's in the Old Testament. What is that a story of? That is a story of separation, being separated from each other and from their creator, from God. And in their separation, there was worry, fear, anxiety, shame, and guilt. Life is about moving from separation back to oneness and connection and wholeness. And relational psychology says we heal in a loving relationship. So the more you're around people who love you and support you and you feel that connection, you actually begin to heal. As you begin to heal and there's healing and wholeness, you have a higher state of mind. Am I making sense with higher and lower state of mind and how it fits? And also the other term that we're talking about here, inside versus outside, right? Don't look outside of the world. Look inside to your heart and soul. Outside is not more powerful than you. When Nelson Mandela was in prison, he still felt free and believed he was free, no matter what he was facing on the outside. And if you look at Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, he's same thing. Freedom was on the inside. Right now, whatever you're experiencing, if you hate Trump and you're sad that your candidate lost, what you're feeling is this circumstance, this event, is ruining my life and going to ruin my life. But if you wake up today like I did, and I said, you know what? I have the power to create my circumstance. I said this yesterday. I don't care who wins. I'm going to go and create my life and make my life great and do everything I can to make it better. And guess what? If bad things do happen and we wind up eventually, losing our democracy that everyone was so worried about, and that actually happens, okay, well, guess what? We'll find a way to find freedom within our mind to persevere and work through it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Inspired. My name is Jonathan Cohen, and I have a quick favor to ask you. If you're getting any value out of this content, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You help us reach more people, and you can also stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning in. A lot of the themes that you're talking about, what's inside our control, what's in our control, what's outside our control, being adaptable to external circumstances. And, the question started with what people get wrong about mental toughness. And you talked about oneness that comes along with understanding all of these different elements that we talked about. I ran 6 marathons and ultra marathons this year. Most recently, 8 weeks ago, a 58-mile ultra marathon where we raised $29,000 for an organization called the Friendship Circle, helping children who struggle with special needs learn real life skills and integrate into society. And when you're 40 miles into a 58-mile run, you can't hate yourself. That's not the conversation that you can have internally. You have to love yourself. And you talk a lot about love, light. And on Sunday, I ran the New York City Marathon on my fastest time ever, 3:18, which I thought I'd finish in 3:30. And especially after running an ultra, I've never run that fast. But it's all self-love, making friends with the pain and embracing those moments where, you question your reality. And in going through your work, reading a couple of your books, hearing these themes of light, love, happiness, positivity, positive psychology, there's also this concept of learning to have difficult conversations. And I really enjoyed that book that you co-wrote, and the lessons were immense. You offer a framework, the Star 3 framework. We don't have to walk through the whole thing, but I'd love to just elaborate on the importance of being able to have hard conversations and how to ease into those conversations, because the part that resonated most with me was about they're not just hard conversations, they're growth conversations. And I'd love to get your feedback on that.
Well, sometimes the most important conversations you need to have is with yourself. You just talked about running that marathon. Well, Dr. James Gills is the only person on the planet to complete 6 double Ironman triathlons, which means you do an Ironman, a day later you do another one. And the last time he did it, he was 59 years old. And he was asked how he did it. And he said, I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. So those negative thoughts are coming in. And I love that you just said you have to love yourself during that time. Like, you can't battle with yourself. If you are battling with yourself, you're going to lose. You need to talk to yourself like you would your own best friend. So you need to encourage yourself along the way. The word encourage means to put courage into. So when you're encouraging yourself, you're putting courage into yourself. But Jonathan, where does that negative thought come from? Does it come from you? And this is where people get wrong as well. People always talk about, the negative thoughts in our head, the inner critic, they call it. They say you're your worst enemy. Who would ever choose to have a negative thought? Where is an inner critic come from? And why do you even have an inner critic? No one ever questions that line of thinking. Negative thoughts come from consciousness. Negative thoughts come from a spiritual place. And I'm convinced the brain's an antenna. Recently, someone just called it a transducer. And it's interacting with the world around you. And I would say the collective field of consciousness. You're collecting negative thoughts that are coming in from consciousness, as positive thoughts do as well. Sometimes they're probably coming in from, I believe, your soul, which people call the subconscious all the time. It's your soul. It's your being. It's who you are. So these negative thoughts come in, and there's a battle going on in your soul. But the first negative thought did not come from you. What happens is it comes in, and then you believe it, and then you reinforce it, and then you speak it out loud. And now it is coming from you because you believed the lie initially. See, we're not the thoughts we think, we're the thoughts we believe. This is huge. You're not the thoughts you think, you're the thoughts you believe. The negative thought comes in. Am I believing that? Am I going to reinforce it? So you're talking to me about running. You're running. That negative thought's going to come in, and it does. But you're like, no, I'm not going to listen to that. That's a lie. That's not who I am, and that's not coming from me. There's so much freedom in knowing that. I've had kids no longer want to commit suicide once they understood those negative thoughts were not coming from them. Why? Because they were beating themselves up. They thought something was wrong with them. They thought they were broken for the thoughts in their head. And once they understand those thoughts are not coming from you, and you don't have to believe them. They're like, whoa, there's so much freedom. There's an understanding that, okay, I'm in a battle between negative and positive. There's a force going on of negativity. There's a love positivity, a force of love and positivity. Negativity is trying to separate and divide me and weaken me. Positivity and love is trying to connect me and lift me up. So I have to overcome in life the negativity with positivity and love to win the battle. And this is why love drives grit. When you have love for something, you don't give up. You keep going. You keep fighting. When you love your family, you'll fight for them. When you love running, you'll keep going. When you love the goal you're trying to achieve and you love yourself, you're not going to beat yourself up. People beat themselves up because they've been convinced they're not enough and they're not worthy because that's what the thoughts came in and said. So then they say, I'm not worthy. So I'm not worthy of reinforcement. I'm not worthy of love. So now they don't feel the love. And now they feel the fear. Love casts out fear too. Love is more powerful than fear. So the minute you focus on love, that gives you the strength and the power to overcome the fear that you have. See, this is next level understanding of mental toughness. This is not just, hey, just stay positive. Hey, just fight. Hey, just run and say, fuck that, I'm going for it. You know, like so many people teach, right? That gives people a certain amount of anger and energy to get through whatever challenge they're going through, right? And you know what? Anger is better than depression. Anger gets you off the couch and at least moving, but it's still steroids of the soul. It's not healing you. You need it for energy in the short term, but it's not giving you fuel for the long term. Love is fuel for the long term. So those conversations you're having with yourself is essential because the negativity is trying to win, and you have to win the battle by loving yourself, encouraging yourself, speaking life to yourself, telling yourself that you're worthy, telling yourself that you matter, telling yourself there's a plan for your life and keep going. You're going to overcome. I lost a battle in my mind for years. That's why I'm so good at this because, man, I was so bad at the mental game. I played Division I lacrosse in college at Cornell University, and my teammates cannot believe what I'm doing now. They're like, what? You were a mental wreck. I was the biggest mental wreck around. I just saw a recent teammate. He's like, man, I can't believe what you've become. Like, you were like so fearful all the time. You had so much doubt. You questioned everything. You had no confidence in yourself, all of that. And I believe I had to go through that to now be a light and teach others. So those conversations I love helping people have with themselves. And then once you're having that conversation with yourself, now you're in a position to have those conversations with others. And you know, in difficult conversations, we talked about small ego, big mission to have great conversations. You gotta have a small ego and a big mission. If you're focused on your ego and yourself, you can't have a great conversation because you have to have concern for others and care for others to have a great conversation, a meaningful conversation, a productive conversation. And so you have to be able to move past the small ego, or I would say, sorry, the big ego, get to a smaller ego to have those conversations. And then once you do and you work on yourself, you're now in a position to have great conversations with your friends, your family, and your teammates. And I would say, yeah, after and during the election, there was a need for meaningful conversations that didn't hurt the relationship, that didn't hurt the friendship. And my brother and I both had differences of opinions of the election and how we saw it. And my brother and I even, for instance, decided like, hey, let's not fight over this. Let's not even talk much about it. We disagree and we agree to disagree, but let's maintain our relationship, which is also a big part of the model of difficult conversations because the difficult conversations should make you stronger, not weaker. It should create more unity. And if you look at my Instagram post today and my Twitter post, it says, I pray for unity, for a healed country, healed people, and healthy people. Like I want healthy people. I want healed people. And we need more of that. And that will be a society that understands everything we're talking about. That's why I'm so glad you're actually doing this podcast and you do this in general because this is what people need to know if they want to be healthy and they want to be healed.
Well, I'm very grateful for that, and I'm definitely grateful to be sitting down with you because I've appreciated your work for a minute, and way longer than a minute, but metaphorically a minute. And it's been great to see how you live your message, right? You've actually practiced, and because you've been someone who struggled with these things, like I wasn't always an athlete. I couldn't even jump over a rope. I couldn't even finish a mile without walking or being in pain. And then, all these years later, 34 years later, however long, I'm doing these things and I get to sit down with people like yourself to channel these messages about overcoming adversity to lead a purpose-driven life because they don't have these tools. Like you said, there's a delta in the type of mental toughness that you're talking about here and the initial kind of rah-rah about it, right? Anger gets you off the couch or the steroids for the soul. I've never heard that before. That one's going to stay with me. You're someone who's been around a plethora of high performers, professional NBA players, MLB players, football players. In the spirit of not asking a generic question, but I'd be kind of remiss if I didn't ask, what are, in your view, the common threads that have yielded champions in your experience from seeing what they were like before you got to work with them and after? What are kind of those transformational characteristics or frameworks that you've implemented that help lead to championship level results?
Well, sometimes it's not even the fact that I work with them. A lot of times it's they read my books and then they reach out. Like Training Camp, What the Best Do Better Than Everyone Else. That's like one of my favorite books. It's all about, 20 ways to be mentally tough. There's also a whole 11 characteristics that separate the best from the rest in the book. It's about pursuing excellence, but it's also about overcoming your fear and finding your faith to be who you're meant to be. Damian Lillard read that book twice before his rookie season in the NBA. Reached out after his rookie season. He was named Rookie of the Year. He said, "Hey, I read your book, man. It was a game changer for me." And I really believe, that's why I write books, to impact people. And so many have read that, The Energy Bus. Most recently, The One Truth, which is teaching oneness and separateness, teaches high state of mind, low state of mind. Nothing like The One Truth on the planet. And a lot of people are now reading that and going, man, that's taking me to a whole other level. I just had some coaches reach out as well. The understanding of the 5 Ds of doubt, distortion, discouragement, distraction, division, those 5 Ds, how to overcome those 5 Ds to get to a higher state of mind. Just really cool teaching. I love teaching that. And I'm so thankful that those ideas came to me. I can't even take credit. They came to me on walks. They were like downloads. And I just saw how it all fit. So seeing these athletes implement these principles, before, after, or just even from good to great, or even, great to struggling. A lot of times I'll talk to guys who are quarterbacks, for instance, in the NFL, and they're great, but now they're struggling. It's important to know there's always an ebb and flow. There's always going to be highs and lows. It's a roller coaster, and it's always going to be. When you're on the roller coaster and you're going down, don't jump off. So often they escape, or they try to fix something thinking something's broken. Think about it. You mess up, you make a mistake, you start thinking, oh, something's wrong, something's broken. No, nothing's wrong, nothing's broken. Just keep on staying on the roller coaster. You'll ride it to a higher state of mind. And you're running a race. You know this. As you're running that marathon, congratulations, by the way, and the ultras that you did, it's incredible. As you're doing that, there's going to be highs and lows. And the key is you're just not quitting. You just keep going. You could actually, when you look back, actually go through your highs and lows and your states of mind in the race. Same thing with life. Throughout the day, you're going to have highs and lows. Don't jump off. Nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's broken. Just stay on it and you'll ride it to a higher state of mind. And that's the key. I share that in The One Truth as well. What I help these athletes realize, or everyday people, is that there's nothing wrong with you. This is part of the journey of life. And how can you be in a higher state more often than a lower state? And how do we not allow those negative thoughts to sabotage us? And when we're going through some really heavy stuff, we can look at the wounds that we're carrying and see how the wounds, and what is a wound? A separation. A wound or trauma that people experience. The people that experience trauma, what has happened in their life, or there was a separation that occurred that actually leads to a physical separation in their brain. There's a neurological separation in people who experience trauma. All mental health disorders think about that, report feelings of isolation, disconnection, and separation. So everything comes down to what in my life is separating me right now. And once you recognize that, then I'll help them get back to connection, which then helps them through their connection create more clarity. Connection creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. And then confidence creates courage.
Jon, this has been an awesome time. I want to be respectful of your time. In the couple minutes that we have left, I'm going to pose you a question. If the future version of you from 10 years from now were to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
10 years from now?
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're meant to do. Do not allow distractions to get in the way. and remember the mission that you have. That every human being needs three things. We need a mission, we need a team, and we need a scoreboard. So keep focusing on the mission. Keep building your team with the right people that support you and encourage you and challenge you. And then that scoreboard, keep working towards the scoreboard. But make sure that scoreboard is not just a number scoreboard. Make sure it's also a bigger scoreboard that's all about significance and impact and focusing on how many people can we impact along the way. That's honestly my mindset right now. And I want to make sure I keep that mindset as I go forward.
Thank you so much for your time. Please let the audience know where they can keep up with your journey.
They can go to jongordon.com, Jon Gordon.com, or find me on Twitter, JonGordon11. I guess it's called X now. Instagram, I'm on there. LinkedIn, find me on there. Facebook on there. Just find me anywhere on social media. And I'd love to hear from you. If you do want to receive my 20 ways to be mentally tough, or you want to receive how to have a high state of mind, I've got something for you. Just DM me on Instagram, Jon Gordon11, Jon Gordon11, and I'll literally send it to you right there.
This is awesome. Appreciate you. And for the next one.
Hey, thank you, Jonathan. Great job. Keep running. Keep running.